The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Monday, March 14th, 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,243.06 an ounce, silver $15.49 an ounce, Texas crude $38.50 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 412 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1971, the Rolling Stones leave England for France to escape taxes, essentially becoming British tax exiles. Their experience inspired the title of their famous album Exile on Main Street. According to a 2006 article in the Daily Mail, the Rolling Stones have paid just 1.6% tax on their earnings of £242 million over the last 20 years. In recent news, after shutting down Austin for several hours and quite possibly causing the worst traffic ever, Barack Obama told the Texas Tribune on Friday at the South by Southwest Interactive Festival that, quote, the folks who are governing the good state of Texas aren't interested in having more people participate. Texas is typically a low turnout state, however, did have turnouts rise to 2.8 million on the Republican side and 1.4 million on the Democratic side, the largest primary showing since 2008. Though in reality, we are slightly only ahead of Louisiana in primary turnouts, giving us some perspective if by adding all the numbers you realize that nearly 4 out of every 5 adults in Texas voted nobody and refused to cast a ballot. A medicine derived from the marijuana plant has succeeded in reducing epileptic seizures in its first major clinical trial. The developer GW Pharmaceuticals, a London-based company, said that their drug Epidiolex achieved the goal of the trial, which was reducing convulsive seizures when compared with a placebo in patients with Dravet syndrome, a rare form of epilepsy. If Epidiolex receives regulatory approval, it would be the first authorized prescription drug in the United States extracted purely from marijuana. Dr. Oren Davinsky of the Comprehensive Epilepsy Center at New York University Langone Medical Center said that the results of this Epidiolex pivotal trial are important and exciting as they represent the first placebo-controlled evidence to support the safety and efficacy of pharmaceutical cannabidiol. The Lone Star Lowdown is currently looking to fill some ad space. If you have a product or a service you'd like to advertise with us, feel free to give me a call at 210-363-2257. This is Rick Rohde with your Lowdown for March 14th, 2016.
Off the wind on this heading by the Marquesas. We got 80 feet of the waterline, nicely making way. In a noisy bar in Avalon, I tried to call you, but on midnight watch I realized why twice you ran away. Think about how many times.
Welcome everyone. This is Agenda 21 Talk. I'm Don. It is Tuesday. Another primary election night, March the 15th, 2016. And call Shannon for the show. Couldn't make it tonight again. He's just exhausted doing demolition. So we have to work for a living. So he said call him next week. He might be on. So again, I'm Don. Our call-in number is 512-646-1984. Our email, as long as Yahoo's still viable, which I have doubts about, I'm having trouble with them, is agenda21talk@yahoo.com. Agenda21talk, and the 21 are the numbers 2 and 1. Agenda21talk@yahoo.com. Email me with any comments or questions or anything you hear on the show. Any stuff we have of a religious, biblical nature that I've written, or any other legal stuff. We've got code enforcement stuff, all kinds of stuff we can give you. We're glad to pass it on. Agenda21talk@yahoo.com. We are streaming on logosradionetwork.com. A good website. Go to it. It's got a chip-in button. A little bit of, I didn't check it for the show, but, only asking for like $10,000 or so, something like that, for our equipment and to keep the lights on. And so we really appreciate that. There's ads on the website, but they're not the really obtrusive ads. I think they're not any pop-ups, and there's just ads that are embedded ads, I think. So that's how we make our money. We don't make any money. That's how we stay on the air, pay the bills. I was laughing because there's a big brouhaha about ads and ad blockers, on software. Anyway, so tonight's Tuesday night. Donald Trump is going to talk about him. He's beat Rubio in Florida, and Rubio's from Florida. He's a senator from Florida, and Trump beat him 2-1. Last time I saw it was almost 800,000 votes for Trump and 400,000 for Rubio, and then Kasich got zilch. He got a little bit at the end, and I think Deborah was telling me Rubio's dropped out already because he couldn't even win his home state, and Clinton's winning anyway. So tonight I was going to talk about money. Later on the show we'll talk about money. It helps if you want to make money. It helps to be a preacher named Dollar. That's pretty good. That guy in Georgia, he needs an airplane, gets on his preaching network and says, our ministry needs an airplane. Send us money. His last name's Dollar. I forget his first name. But anyway, we're going to talk about what is. And the reason I brought it up, give you a little teaser, is this weekend, I think it was Saturday, some hackers got into a bank in Bangladesh and were able to get out with something. I forget, I don't have the news article because it's not important for what I'm trying to say. But I think they got out with like $18 million. That's the number that comes to mind. I don't remember for sure. But they were trying to get out hundreds of millions of dollars, and they got about 18 before somebody in Europe caught them and put a stop to it. So I want to talk about what money is, what they really get away with, and is it like a bank robbery of old? And Clinton, talk about her in a little bit. Old Trump there, I don't vote because, and we were talking today in a meeting. Before the meeting, somebody was saying he couldn't vote today because he registered as an independent. And in Florida, they don't let you vote for a Republican or Democrat in the primary because you registered as an independent. And he's made some comment about he used to be a member of one party. And I said, they're both the same. He said, yeah, I think you're right. So Republicans, Democrats, they're both the same. I don't care what you say. But the thing about Trump, let's talk about him for a minute. Call in if you disagree, agree, if you want to politic or do anything. Call in 512-646-1984. And I apologize for my voice. I've had trouble today. And it comes and goes. I'm going through puberty. Think about Trump. Let's see. All these ads, maybe I'm jaded, and I probably am. 62 years old. I've seen lots of elections. I remember watching elections in the 60s. My brother, who was 4 years older, got a TV set from his paper route money. And we watched the 66 convention, maybe the 68, when the riots were in Chicago. I don't remember them. But we've been watching conventions for a long time, Democrat and Republican. And I've come to the conclusion, if you actually look at things with not through rose-colored glasses, but through just an honest look at things, you realize nothing's changed. They go to all these conventions, people talk this and talk that, and they come up with a platform that they used to come up with. Now they don't think they hash anything out. But they used to do all this work, and then nothing ever changes. And the guy gets elected like Obama and breaks every promise he made. Economy's doing sort of kind of good, so he's taking credit for that. But he promised to be an open presidency, and yet he's gutted the FOIA process for getting records from the government. He's the most closed presidency. Everyone's getting closed. He's doing just what Bush did, not answering FOIAs. And anyway, he's a very closed, even though he said he would be the most open presidency. He just turned around 180 degrees. Doesn't matter what they say when they're running for office. When they get elected, they'll do something the opposite. So anyway, all these ads against Trump, these consortiums, you see at the bottom, the end of the ad, there'll be something about something against Trump. They want you to vote against somebody rather than vote for somebody. But anyway, the point of all these ads that I've seen, and I don't watch a lot of them, actually I have the volume down on most of them, but they seem just so lame. I just don't know what the deal is. Maybe it's just me. Maybe all political advertisements for the past 60 years have been lame, but they just seem super lame when they're going against Trump. Now, I don't care for Trump myself. I never liked him. I didn't like his TV show. He's always seemed to pompous, know-it-all. And he's got more money than I do, so maybe he does know something. But he just rubbed me the wrong way, and I freely admit it. So I'm not saying I'm voting for Trump or I want you to vote for him. Do whatever you want. But still, these ads against him just seem so lame. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just, like I say, 60 years of watching this crap go on, and you realize they're all lame. Maybe they've always been lame, but that's just one thing I've seen. And then Trump, was telling a guy at work too that somebody else, maybe me, maybe somebody else, could say the exact same thing Trump's saying, the same policies, just saying it a different way, and they would get a lot further. Nobody would complain as much. People would not complain as much, put it that way. So it's just something about Trump, maybe, or that they're calling him a racist. I don't know if he's racist or not. I don't know the man, but saying you want to be able to stop immigration, at least for a while until we get this terrorist stuff sorted out, seems like a good idea to me. It's not racist at all. There's what law? Show me what law. It's not in the Constitution. I read through it. I've read a lot of it on the air. Show me what law that says we have to allow people into the country. Now, I know, of course, my father comes from a Cherokee out of Oklahoma. He was my grandfather. And my father was born as his mother was leaving her husband, my grandfather, and he was born on the way down from Cherokee Country, Oklahoma, to Cleburne, Texas. Anyway, so I have American Indian, so I could say we've been here first. But I know there's a lot of immigration, and probably the other side of my family has immigrated from somewhere, sometime or another, because I have pretty light skin. So, country was built on immigration. And I learned, when they used to teach history in high school, that during the late 1800s, early 20th century, they used to put ads in foreign countries like Ireland and whatever and say, look how great it is over in America. Come over. It's great. That's one reason there was a mass immigrant, because the industry needed cheap labor. And instead of building it in Ireland factory, they coerced Irish people to come to America and work their slave labor, low wage, factory labor to come, here in this country. So that's one reason there was a lot of immigrant stuff coming. But anyway, we're built on immigration, but still you should be able to stop it when the people that want to come over here or have known terrorist ties, come from countries that do terrorist activities. And so you want to at least be able to stop it until you sort through it all. So that seems like a bright idea to me. It's not illegal. Supposedly Jimmy Carter did it. I don't remember. I remember I voted for Ford against Carter, and I'm stupid. But I don't remember that. I don't remember him stopping immigration. Maybe he did. I just guess I was busy doing other stuff during those years. So anyway, it seems like a good idea. So another interesting thing that's in the news, Trump has some people, this one guy got arrested trying to come up on stage with Trump and yell at him, calling him a racist. And the interesting thing about that is that I wanted to say we no longer, and this goes with Black Lives Matter too, we no longer want to engage in a dialogue. We don't want to debate anything anymore. We don't think our ideas are worth talking about and convincing someone else of our ideas. Now we want to do it by force. And we think Trump's a racist, so we're going to by force stop him. Or we think cops are black killers and we want to stop them by force. Our arguments don't matter anymore, our logic or reason. We want to do it all by force. We want to force people to not say anything we don't like. We want to force people to not be racist. I don't know if Trump's racist or not. You can't force anybody not to be. You can coerce and cajole. You can stop their bad activities, illegal activities that harm other people, but you can't force somebody to like someone else or a certain race or even say anything about it. We have the freedom of speech, which is the freedom to say whatever you want as long as it doesn't incite a riot or incite someone else to commit harm on someone else. But we need to get back to not just discussion, but logic and reason and being able to use our intelligence to sway other people rather than running up on stage and shouting at someone, calling them a racist. Let's hear what you have to say, buddy. Don't shout it. All right, coming up on our first break. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number on this March the 15th, 2016 is 512-646-1984.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back from the break. This is Agenda 21 on this March the 15th, 2016 on LogosRadioNetwork.com. All right, talking about Trump. The guy that ran up on stage, I just wanted to finish the thought. If he really thinks Trump's a racist, well, let's write it down. Let's see what his reasoning is. Why is Trump a racist? Now, I haven't heard every speech Trump's made. I listened to about, 10 minutes worth. I think it was Thanksgiving. He came to Birmingham. He came to Birmingham, Alabama. So they had it on local news, local TV station. And I listened to about 10 minutes. And he, I was more analyzing Trump than anything else. And what he says is not as important, really, to me at the time as how he was saying it. And he digressed, and he'd say something. He couldn't finish. He didn't have notes. He didn't have it written down, which is nice. So he just made it up as he went along. But he digressed. He'd start down a path, and he'd say something, and he'd stop and go down another path. He'd digress, and then he'd digress from that. And eventually he'd get back to where he started. But that kind of drove me nuts. But anyway, I didn't hear anything racist. I didn't hear anything that was horrible. Of course, I didn't hear anything that was good, but mainly I didn't hear anything that was racist or anything that people are saying from the 10 minutes I heard him speak. And I've seen him on TV a little bit. I've seen him on the clips on the debates. But if you think he's racist, well, why? Why do you think that? What evidence are you using? And this helps you in the court of law or in any legal trouble. You have to think this way. What evidence do you have to support your theory that he's a racist? Because he doesn't want Muslims to come into the country? That's not racism. First off, it's common sense, but it's not racism. Racism would be saying we're better than Muslims. They're inferior to us. They're not as good as us. They don't have the technology we have. They don't have the society we have. So we're better than they are. That's racism. But, anyway, it's enough said. But let's hear your theory. Why is he a racist? What actions have you seen him perform that make you think he's a racist? I'd like to hear that. But nobody says that. They just throw names around. I've seen it all over the place. Trump's a racist, this, and it's all in the media and headlines and stuff. Never have I ever heard them say, this is why we think he's a racist. They just say it. And you're supposed to know. It's like you're supposed to know. All right. The North Carolina sheriff had threatened to arrest Trump for inciting a riot. Okay, that's cool. I can see that. Now, what's your evidence that he incited a riot? I didn't see it. I just saw maybe the news story. Maybe it's poor news reporting. Maybe he listed 5 or 6 things Trump said in North Carolina that make you think it was inciting a riot. But they didn't print any of it. I'd be willing to bet if he had said stuff like that, they would have printed at least some of it. But again, you're going to arrest. Now, he's backed off of that about a day later. He backed away, probably because he had nothing. But first off, you got to have a complaint. You can't arrest somebody unless somebody makes a complaint or you see a felony committed in front of you. You see a felony committed, you can make an arrest. You can sometimes make an arrest and they use this, they abuse this completely. But if you see someone about to be harmed, you can make an arrest. Like someone has a gun and he's pointing it, you can make an arrest. Even though that gun may be pointed as a criminal, keeping them from doing something else. Anyway. But so you have to have a complaint. Who made the complaint? Well, nobody. He just didn't like Trump. He was probably a Democrat. Then he thinks there's a difference between a Republican and a Democrat party. There may be differences between an individual person voting Republican and an individual person voting Democrat. They may have differences, but the actual political parties, Republican and Democrats, are actually the conventions. Republican National Convention and Democrat National Convention are both for-profit. I looked them up on Dun & Bradstreet, corporations registered in Washington, D.C. You can get there. You can go to Dun & Bradstreet, pay some money, and you can pull their financials and their corporate charter, or you can at least see what Dun & Bradstreet has them listed as from what they tell Dun & Bradstreet. And they are for-profit corporations. So anyway, there's no difference between them. Two sides of the same coin. They use it, the Hegelian principle of having two sides rub up against each other, and you do that so you can get what you want. And that's usually the middle. And so nothing's changed in all the years I've been looking at politics. Republicans vote for Democrat bills. Democrats vote for Republican bills. They get enough to not vote for it, so it looks like they're different. They're bipartisan, or they're partisan, I'm sorry. But enough vote for each other's bills that the New World Agenda goes forward. And one of the last things I want to say about Trump, at least today, which is maybe the most important, is that it tells you something about this country. Now, the powers that be, the self-anointed elite, the super elite, I like to call them the self-anointed elite, they have an agenda for this for the world. And it's a satanic agenda. It's occultic. We're just a cult. It's an occult. It's a lot of stuff. Pantheism. It's just a lot of stuff. But they have an agenda for the world that they're going for. And apparently America is, well, let's just say that the Trump running for president and people supporting him so much shows that they don't have as much control as they thought they did. America's not ready yet to trash the Constitution and to put in the New World agenda and have a one world government and a one world religion, which is really what they're going for. I mean, the United Nations has their goal, according to the people who founded it and wrote their Constitution, is for a one world religion. That's what they say. I don't say it. So anyway, apparently America's not ready just yet. We're close. We're really close to having them push it forward, but apparently the dissatisfaction and the people voting for Trump and supporting him show that they're not quite there yet. So this is a, bellwether. It's a litmus test. It's a thermometer, not to be too graphic. This is the thermometer for America to see, if I was an evil genius and I'm trying to get America to do what I want it to do, not what they want, and I'm trying to reimpose the Dark Ages, I have to have them agree to it because we have guns and power and weaponry and stuff. So we have to get everybody to at least pretend to agree with this system. So apparently they're not all there yet. So if I was an evil genius, I would look at this and say, well, we just got some work to do. Now, all we have to do really, you go to education, you educate, since we force everybody to go to school, and now we force our thoughts on education onto people, and we enforce our belief system on the children in school. And no matter what, I've read stories, no matter what you think, they're forcing kids to read the Quran and to go to Islamic school at least a little bit. They're taught Sharia is great and all this stuff in school. They're actually doing it. I read articles about it to confirm that. But so all they have to really do is wait till these kids grow up. And after several generations, you can get what you want out of a country just by education. And that's the second point I wanted to mention that, actually not second, but it's another point I wanted to mention. Most of the supporters for Trump are older people, gray hairs like me, and people 40 and over that I've seen in rallies supporting Trump. All the kids, young people, my son, thinks Bernie Sanders got it going on because he's got free education, free this, free that. And we can talk about that later. But anyway, the socialism sounds good to a young person. They haven't studied it. They don't know the ramifications of it. They need to talk to people who've lived through it in other countries. But anyway, most of the people supporting Trump are older. So we just have to wait. If I'm an evil genius, I just have to bide my time. I mean, push things forward a little at a time. I mean, we've got homosexuality now, so state-sponsored homosexuality. So all we have to do is bide our time, and young kids growing up in school, we get them trained, and then we can have this one world government, one world religion, one world leader all set up in place. All right, this is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number. Tell me what you think. 512-646-1984.
Having trouble breathing? You may want to reach for a bitter-tasting substance like grapefruit peel and take a big whiff. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and in a moment I'll tell you how bitter foods could be traditional inhalers for opening blocked air passages.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Bitter foods may soon give pharmaceutical inhalers a run for their money. Researchers have found that inhaling bitter substances opens bronchial airways better than any known asthma medication on the market. Apparently, the bitter taste receptors we have on our tongues are also present in our lungs. If something tastes bitter in your mouth, the receptors in your lungs will pick up the bitter scent molecules too. The lungs react by opening up the airways. Scientists are experimenting with aerosols made of bitter substances like quinine, the ingredient that gives tonic water its bite. They believe this could help bring relief to millions of people suffering with bronchitis, emphysema, and asthma. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Looking for some truth? You found it. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Seems like yesterday
Welcome back. It says Agenda 21 Talk, March the 15th, 2016. Another election night. Apparently Trump's people are finally realizing he might win, so they're voting for him in mass now. So anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention is, and maybe I was going to say train my mind. I try to say stuff to not sound like I'm pompous or know what I'm talking about. I don't know anything. I'm stupid. Or I'm a know-it-all. I'm a Cliff Clavin from Cheers. But I guess all this legal stuff that we've been doing over the years has trained my mind. Plus, I'm an engineer. Has trained my mind in a certain way. So when I see stuff like a story that says Hillary Clinton said that nobody in Libya died while she was Secretary of State, she was sort of referring to that Libyan little crisis thing, Benghazi, where the embassy was stormed by Muslims and they killed 4 people. One of them was an assistant ambassador, Christopher, what was his name? Christopher what? Star? I can't think of his name. Christopher something starts with an S. Christopher Stevens, I think. But she claimed, was it today or yesterday, that nobody was killed. And she said it, and they cheered her. I'm sure I didn't see a video, but I'm sure they cheered her. And I'm sure there's people in the crowd that are, and listen on radio, believe it. Yet there were people that were killed. And it turns out the Obama administration, I don't know, they were trying to get Hillary on Benghazi investigations for a couple of times in Congress. I think they were just shows, just more TV shows. They didn't get anywhere. But now Obama has said, well, it wasn't a terrorist act. The Obama administration is spinning it, saying the people that were killed in the riots and that, while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, well, that wasn't a terrorist attack. That was just violence. They just call it violence. Just a riot, armed robs. Trump must have been over there and he incited a riot. But that's what they're saying. So I don't really care about politics. I don't care what Obama says. I don't care what Hillary Clinton says. What I see when I hear this story is that people will believe a lie rather than the truth. And today, when research is even easier to do, you can do it from your cell phone. You can Google, go to Wikipedia. I'm sure they have a web page on Benghazi, and I'm sure you can get a lot of pretty decent facts so that you'll know these 2 people are lying through their teeth, and yet people won't do it. They'll believe it, and they'll vote for it. Of course, the Democrats don't have much of a choice. You've got an old doddering socialist who wants to give away everything for free, and he talks glowingly about socialist countries, even though they have tremendous problems, and people from those countries say, hey, this is horrible. But he paints glowing pictures of socialism and communism. What's the difference between socialism and communism? What's the difference between those two and fascism? And then they have Hillary. And she's just as socialist as Bernie Sanders. She just is has a one world government on her mind, just as Sanders does. She just doesn't come off that way. It hides it. So anyway, the whole point of all this is why do people believe it? Why don't they study it? Why don't they do just a little research and call her out on it? Why is the mass populace relying on 1 or 2 people to fight their battles for them, to think for them? Why don't we think for ourselves? Why don't we do our own research? Why don't we call out people that are lying to their face? Why don't we just do it? Why are we so sheep-like? I don't know. That's what I see. Liars are going to lie. Politicians are going to lie. Why do we fall for it over and over and over again? Why don't we ever learn? How many times does someone have to lie to you before you begin to think, well, maybe that person is not such a good, reliable source of information. Maybe I should not take them as a source of tried and true information. Maybe I should check it out. So anyway, that's the only reason I bring that up. Don't care about Hillary. I don't care if she's elected or not. Doesn't matter. The agenda is going to go forward. The thing about Trump and the Tea Party of a few years ago and people resisting, these older people, we remember what it was like before all this stuff happened, before the framework scaffolding has been built, and they're putting the walls up now. We remember what it's like. We don't like it. We want to go back to freedom. And so, you know, all these gray hairs have to die off, get so old that Obamacare will put them to death, and then they can move forward, because the young people aren't taught in schools history. They're not taught really how to think, and they believe whatever they're told, which is good, what they're trained to do. And so they will have a much easier time getting in the new world order. One world government, one world religion, one world leader. Like the fearless leader from Rocky and Bullwinkle. That's what they're going for. And got a few minutes left on yet another concept. There was, I think Hillary was saying in what I read about Hillary saying no people died in Libya. She didn't mention Benghazi by name. But she was talking about the spreading of democracy around the world. And if you have read anything at all, that's apparently what we're trying to do. Afghanistan was to give democracy to them, to get away from Al-Qaeda and put in democracy here and democracy there. We've talked about it before. My wife gets really upset about it. Democracy is slavery. Slavery is okay in democracy. If 51% of the people vote for slavery, it's perfectly okay. That's a democracy. Majority rule. And if the majority want to do something, they do it. That's a democracy. We, however, were guaranteed by people who were smarter than we are. Over 200 years ago, we were guaranteed a Republican form of government. The national constitution and every state constitution will have a Republican form of government. And there's lots of definitions you'll find for a Republican. What does it mean to have a republic? The best definition I know of is simple. It just says Republican form of government means majority rules except. There are certain guidelines and rules that the majority cannot vote to do without. Basic rights for people is one of them. Slavery, of course, this country was started with slavery, but slavery is one of them. We don't want slavery. We don't want, to discriminate based on race, color, ethnic origin, religion, or anything else. Everybody's supposed to be treated fairly. So that's one of the foundations. That's rule by law, which is a show on this network, rule by law. Rule of law is probably what it's called, but it really means that even the government, even if the people wanted to, the government cannot do certain things. And that's a republic. Boundaries, laws that are set that even the government cannot violate. But our government is violating almost it come up with stuff we haven't even heard of before that they're violating. Spying on their own people. They got drones now. The Army has admitted, I probably have a news article that I'll read eventually. The Army's admitted that they've used drones to spy on American people. United States Army did. Go Army. And so all kinds of stuff. They help the police do stuff. Totally against the law, really. But anyway, okay. So tell me what you think. If it's March the 15th, where you are, 2016, call in 512-646-1984. Let me know what you think about all this stuff. And I'd love to hear from you. Do you think Trump's got it going on? And the other thing, I was going to mention, coming up on a break, I'll mention it after the break and then start talking about money. But, we'll just do it after the break. Not enough time. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call in with your comments or questions or whatever you think. 512-646-1984. Would love to hear from you. And I got a couple of emails this week. Very kind emails. I appreciate it. 512-646-1984.
Easy.
Welcome back. It's Agenda 21 Talk. Calling number 512-646-1984. Love to hear what you have to say on any topic. For the break, I mentioned I was going to talk about something, but then I started doing other stuff, and it's just gone out of my mind. So probably sometime in the next hour, it'll come to me in the middle of something else and what I was going to say. So anyway, that's what happens. So other thoughts pushed it out. Sorry about that. Full disclosure. All right, it's got one segment for the hour break. So I want to talk about money. It kind of goes in with with Trump. I freely admit that I didn't like Trump before, but yet I have to clarify, because never heard Jesus say he didn't like anybody, that I love the guy. I love everyone. We're all made in the image of God, including Trump. Now, does Donald Trump act like he's religious? He panders for votes from religious people, and tried to say he was religious until somebody asked him what was his favorite Bible verse or something, and he backpedaled. But is he religious? Well, I don't know. I don't know the person. I haven't seen any fruits of that tree, but he's still made in the image of God, and we're to love and pray for and support each other. So when I say I don't like him, I don't mean I hate him and I wish he'd go to hell. Not at all. I wish the best for him and for everyone, for even Hillary Clinton. Even though I suspect she worships the other God, I hope that and pray for her and her soul to find the truth and follow Jesus, and so we can walk and have a nice conversation in heaven. That's what I hope. Okay, what is money? This is so funny. I love this job. I love what I do. I may not be very good at it, but I love it. So this weekend, saw a story that you can search for it. I purposely didn't get the story because I didn't want to spend 20 minutes reading it and not just talking about it. So just if you go Google Bangladesh and bank and heist or hack, somebody went online, some hackers, and got into a bank in Bangladesh and started doing some transfers through a bank in Europe through to Malaysia. And they got, I don't know, $10 million, $18 million. They're trying to do hundreds of millions before somebody in Europe caught them. They waited till Saturday afternoon in Europe, I guess, late in the afternoon on Saturday. Banks are open on Saturday, by the way. Even in Israel, they're open on Saturday. They're closed on Sunday. So they managed to get some money. So question, did the bank in Bangladesh actually lose anything? What is money? What did these people actually, did they get anything? Well, it's all digital. It's just numbers in a computer. They just transferred numbers from one computer to another computer to a third computer, and probably several in between. So what is money? If money is just numbers in a computer, I got numbers in my computer. Am I rich? What is money anymore? Used to, really short synopsis. I mean, this is a super short history, so I don't want to see a YouTube video saying my history sucks. But used to, the wealth, everybody knew gold and silver and precious metals and stones, like diamonds and rubies, stuff that looked pretty, that was rare. Everything that's rare was worth something. And used to, the money would be the gold or silver coins or powders or something. They used to have to measure it because in the Bible talks about your weights and measures must be sure and not they used to jimmy the scales so that somebody wanted to pay with 1 ounce of gold or whatever weight, ounce is arbitrary anyway, that there was so that it was fixed so that they would actually pay 1.5 ounces and you would keep the 0.5 ounce as pure profit over whatever it was you were charging as profit anyway. So anyway, the wealth used to be in the money itself, gold and silver coins, up until, well, our Constitution says the only thing government can make their own money is gold and silver coin. Doesn't say anything about paper. So paper money is new. It's only passed since the 1800s, the mid-1800s, that they started paper money that I know of. They used to maybe use script or something. Jesus talks about script, so maybe they would put their money in somebody's, let's say, vault or somebody that has it guarded, and they'd give them a piece of paper that says you have this much money in my room here that's guarded, and said you go spend that, and then people would go collect that. If you wanted to buy something at the bazaar, you'd go with this paper in your hand, and then somebody would take that or part of it or something and then go get their money after you bought the item. But it was mostly the wealth was in the money. But now, since they went to paper, they had the paper backed by gold. So theoretically, Fort Knox had enough gold to cover all the dollars that were printed. Until they started printing way more dollars than gold we ever had. And then they decided to take us off the gold standard, so now we just had paper money. And I won't go too much into Abraham Lincoln wanted to finance the war. He didn't have enough money. The private banks weren't giving him any money, enough money that he wanted, so he started printing his own money. He said, I can print money. We're the United States of America. I'll just print my own money. And they called them greenbacks because they had a green color to them, kind of like today. And, of course, he was assassinated. And then Kennedy tried to make Kennedy dollars. I've seen a copy of it. I haven't actually held it in my hand, but among people who said they had some. He printed his own money because he figured, well, we don't need the Federal Reserve. We'll just print our own money. And the Federal Reserve's a big scam. And, of course, he was assassinated. So if it's just paper anymore, I have to carry this on another hour because I got 5 minutes left. I don't think I'll finish in 5 minutes. But you can almost see, well, in 1913, the Federal Reserve was officially started or whatever by Congress. It's been going on since the Civil War. The banks financed both sides, private banks. So anyway, you could kind of see it would be like this. The United States will pay the Federal Reserve to print money. So the Federal Reserve prints $1 and we pay them $1 and a penny. We pay them so much for every dollar that they print. Well, what are we going to pay them? They don't want dollars. They just printed sheets of dollars. They can print all the dollars they want. So what do they want in exchange to print this money? Now, I won't go into that too much, just to say that you could see that there's some exchange going on. They at least had some physical something, paper with ink on it. And the federal government was buying this paper money to use in circulation and then paying them more than the face value of the money to make it worthwhile for the printer. I don't understand, but anyway, that's what they did. You could at least see that. But today's electronic banking, and has been for a while, it's all computer controlled. The amount of dollar bills and coins total, according to the Federal Reserve, makes up just a fraction of 1% of all the money that's out there. And it gets smaller every day. And he's going to these credit cards and debit cards that have chips in them and are trying to go to a cashless society. I think Sweden's going to be the first country in the world to go cashless. The United States will go cashless. It may be 10 years. I don't know, but they will go cashless. Cash is going out. So what is money if it's just bits in a computer, just numbers in a computer? What is money? Did the bank in Bangladesh lose anything? Why can't they just, if somebody got 15 million numbers from the computer in Bangladesh, can't they just put the 15 million back in? Sure. It's just a spreadsheet. It's just an accounting sheet. Well, what is it? If you were a banker, and bankers are just super rich. They're part of the self-anointed elite, and you had to, I'd say, struggle. Maybe that's a stretch of the word, but you had to make all these loopholes and whatever to get richer and richer and richer off of other people. They used to came up with the stock market and commodities and all these different commodity tradings. And I saw an article that said that trading has gotten so complex on Wall Street that even the Wall Street experts can't explain or know all of the different trading things that go on and the different nuances that have been created. So you had to work at all these things to make money. You knew these things that the average person did not know. So you could make tons of money. I mean, just lots of money. But you still had to kind of work for it. You had to come up with all these schemes to get people to fall for it so that you could make money. But now with computers, all you have to have is numbers, a keyboard. That's all you need is a keyboard. If you have the computers that have the money in it, it's just numbers. But I have a computer with numbers. You have a computer with numbers. They're not good enough. There has to be another computer that has numbers. So what is the federal government actually buying from the Federal Reserve? Just numbers in a computer, a spreadsheet? What is the Federal Reserve giving in return? Just numbers in a computer? So the bank in Bangladesh that supposedly lost this money is just numbers in a computer. Why don't they? I'm sure that the bank in Bangladesh is not the biggest. If you draw a hierarchy, they're down somewhere and below. They're not the pinnacle. They're not at the top. But why not the computer that's at the top? Just print more money or just give them more numbers. So one file is 15 billion short from what it was Friday. We'll just put it back in. Just type it in. Who cares? What could possibly go wrong? And if you're a banker, you just keep giving yourself more and more numbers, and you can buy airplanes and cities and underground bunkers and cities underground, and you can buy nations. And because you and me, we have to struggle to get those numbers in a computer with our name on it. But they just, type it in. Isn't that what money is? If you don't think so, call in 512-646-1984. Love to hear from you. We're coming up on the hour break. That's all I had for the show. We'll have to come up with something else for the second hour. So call in 512-646-1984 and let me know what you think and what you I don't know, fill the airways with your intelligence. 512-646-1984. Love to hear from you. Welcome back. This is the second hour of Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number 512-646-1984 on this March the 15th, 2016. And I had this up. I want to talk about, too, how many people have heard of Rick Joyner? He's in a religious context. He's evangelical. He set up something called, what the heck was it? I don't even know. Where is it? What's his thing called? Morning Star Fellowship Church. He turned it into a mega, one of those mega churches with a video and feeds all over the world, whatever. He was grossing $8 million a year. He ended up buying parts of Heritage USA, which was by Jim Baker and Praise the Lord Ministries, PTL. They went defunct, and he bought it for $1.6 million and renamed it Heritage International Ministries. Big deal, big guy. A lot of Baptist churches love him. Wikipedia says he's an adherent of the Dominion theology, which advocates the involvement in and eventual takeover of civil government by Christians. Part of the moral majority, sort of the, I don't know what you call it, but it's trying to get the evangelical leaders, of Texas Governor Perry is supposedly part of it, and I don't know, just trying to get Christians back in government. Well, this sort of sounds good. Sort of it's okay. There's other stuff going on. So I heard a guy say this, and I checked it out, and I'm telling you what I found. This is off the morningstarministries.org website. This is his paper, or whatever you want to call it, bulletin number 54. It's called Love and War. Not going to read all of it. Sections are titled The Great War with a question mark, The Prison of Freedom. That's kind of interesting. The Great Danger. And supposedly he gave this as a speech to military people at one time. The Only True Victory. The Battle Lines. I'm getting there. And The Coming Kingdom. I believe that's what I want to read. No. Where am I? I'll get there. It's on down. Maybe that's it. It's got some, where am I? Thought it was like halfway through it. The Coming Kingdom, I thought that was it. The kingdom of God will not be socialism, but freedom even greater than anyone on earth knows at this time. At first, it will seem like totalitarianism. I guess that's it. Wait a minute. The coming kingdom, the kingdom of God will seem like totalitarianism? Rick Joyner says it, and people believe it. As the Lord will destroy the Antichrist spirit now dominating the world with the sword of his mouth, and will shatter many nations like pottery. That sword of his mouth, the two-edged sword, is the Ten Commandments. However, fundamental to his rule is 2 Corinthians 3:17 that says, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. That's true. Instead of taking away liberties and becoming more domineering, the kingdom will move from a point of necessary control while people are learning truth, integrity, honor, and how to make decisions to increasing liberty so they can. The kingdom will start out necessarily authoritative in many ways or in many areas, but will move toward increasing liberty. So do all true churches and movements that are advancing toward the kingdom. Is that true? Does God really start out as a totalitarian dictator and then gives you more liberty after you've become indoctrinated? He says you maybe have to be very controlling of toddlers, but the older they get, the more they can be trusted and the more freedom they should have if they are going to develop into true maturity, which requires personal responsibility. So kingdom of God is not socialism, but it's totalitarianism. Is that true? Does the Bible teach that? What's this Bible thing teaching this guy? I read the Bible. I try to read the whole Bible and look up every verse on a particular subject, or every section of verses that the Bible talks about. And the Bible is very clear that God gives us freedom of choice. One of the necessary aspects of freedom of choice, it gave us all his creation, angels, all the other worlds. There could be a million other worlds. I don't know how many. But all of them, and there could be a billion people on each world, all of them have freedom of choice. We're, besides the angels in heaven, we're the only ones that have chosen wickedness. But he allows us that choice. In fact, one of the dangers of giving people freedom of choice is they may choose not to love you. And they may choose to violate the law that will kill them. If violating the law causes death, they may choose to do that. And God accounted for that. He allows you freedom of choice so much that he let us choose evil, and then he draws us to him. And he gave us Jesus, who committed no evil on this earth, not one evil thing did Jesus commit. Yet he became sin. He didn't just die for our sins. He became sin so that God had to turn his back on him. And that's what hurt him, Jesus, the most, is his Father had to turn his back on him and leave him alone. And so Jesus did that because he respected our freedom of choice so much. He didn't make us robots. He could have killed us, everyone who sinned. He could have killed instantly when they sinned. But he didn't, because he loves us so much. He wants us to love him back because of who he is, not because you're forced to. That's what's in the Bible. You can see it in Jesus. We have a perfect example of that in Jesus. He's not totalitarian at all. He's not like the Catholic Church in the Dark Ages that killed people that didn't agree. Oh, you're a heretic. Let's torture you and kill you. Don't believe in Jesus. Don't believe don't believe in the Pope. We're going to kill you. So people said they believe in the Pope and follow him and do all that stuff just to keep him being killed. But God is not that way. But Rick Joyner, who writes books and he shows up in churches, and I'll knock on the Baptists, but he shows up in these evangelical churches. But he says the kingdom of God is totalitarianism until you get indoctrinated and you're forced into not going against him, and then he'll give you more liberty. That is satanic. That is what Satan wants you to believe. Satan wants you to believe that heaven is like a straitjacket, and those 10 commandments are awful. You can't follow them anyway, so why even have them? He says, Satan wants you to believe that those 10 commandments that the Bible says is the character of God are done away with, and you don't need them, and they just limit you. So Satan has come to liberate us from those 10 commandments. But Rick Joyner says that the kingdom of God is totalitarianism. No, the kingdom of Satan and the government of Satan that is going to be on this earth in the next few years, we're in the time of trouble such as never was now. It's only going to get worse. That is totalitarianism. So I think Rick Joyner is trying to prepare us for what's coming in the government that he's going to create when Christians, his version of Christianity, takes over the government and has a one-world religion and a one-world religious leader. That's what he's telling us it's going to be. Totalitarianism. He says in here, likewise, there can be no true worship unless there is the freedom not to worship. That is like a half-truth. That's kind of true. God gives us the freedom to sin. He tells us that sin is death, the wages of sin are death, but we have the freedom to sin. Does that make it right? And I can tell you, the people that make it through to heaven, that are saved, are going to want to worship. God doesn't have to force them to worship. I can tell you that sentence is true in the sense that on the new earth, after the 1,000-year reign in heaven with Jesus, on this new earth, it's going to be just like the Garden of Eden. It's going to be one large continent, I believe. And in the middle of that large continent, beautiful trees, tall trees, and we're going to be about 12 feet tall because we've seen ancient skeletons and footprints that have been fossilized that are size 24 feet. So we're going to be about twice our size. So anyway, we're going to be like that, just like it was in the Garden of Eden. And there's going to be a tree. It's going to be a clearing in the middle of this new earth that we're going to be in. The New Jerusalem will be there, about 300 miles square, 300 miles on the side and 300 miles up, reaching into the heavens, into space. Whether it's like that or not, don't know. That's what the Bible, I don't know what space is going to be like, but it's going to reach up into there. And in the middle of that clearing is going to be a tree, and there won't even be a sign there, but we're going to know that's the tree we're not supposed to eat from. And it's going to be a beautiful tree. And the fruit on that tree is going to be just gorgeous looking. But we're going to know not to eat it, because how can God know that we're not going to ever sin again if we don't ever have a chance to sin? There won't be an accuser. There won't be Satan. There won't be a tempter. Say that first. There won't be anybody tempting us to eat that tree, eat the fruit of that tree. But it will be there. And if anybody walks to that clearing and looks at that fruit and even has a thought about eating it, there will probably be 5,000 people show up instantly to say, look what's going to happen if you eat that tree. Look, Here's the books. We're going to open the books, and we're going to show you about death and destruction for 6,000 years. And even the Son of God had to be killed, had to become sin and be killed so that we could even be here. And now you're even thinking about eating that tree. Just think about the ramifications of what you're going to do. And nobody will eat of that tree, but it has to be there. So in a sense, he's right. It's the freedom to eat of that tree if we want to, but we are told that no one will ever want to. Again, it'll be a voluntary choice, but we will all worship the Lord. We'll keep those commandments, and because those commandments are the character of God himself. And so anyway, this is Satan taking one of the precepts of God and turning it into God's a bad person, God's bad, and I know better than God. That's what that is. All right, that's enough of Rick Joyner and Religion of the Day, but I just thought that was so interesting and that he actually said that. I mean, this pastor that I heard that from, he was right. Joyner did say that. And he's a big religious wig-dig these days. Call-in number, 512-646-1984.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk. I'm Don. Call-in number on this March the 15th, Tuesday primary day, is 512-646-1984. All right, here are a couple of news stories. I got a good one. One of them I'll read a happy news story. But this isn't it. This is from the San Jose Mercury News. Actually, that's a pretty decent newspaper. They've had a number of good stories about technology and whatnot. They report, this is from the Mercury News, mercurynews.com. Majority of California adults have prediabetes or diabetes. Nearly half. That's a headline. Nearly half of California adults, 1 out of every 3 young adults, including 1 out of every 3 young adults, are estimated to have an undiagnosed diabetes or prediabetes, a precursor to a life-threatening type 2 diabetes, according to a UCLA study released Thursday. This is right off the presses. What is this? They have a date on here? They don't have a date, but this last week. Whatever. A few days old. I guess it was last Thursday, a week ago from today. But most don't even know they have it. The researchers said the report provides the first analysis and breakdown of California prediabetes rates by county, age, and ethnicity, and offers alarming insights into the future of the nation's diabetes epidemic. It analyzed extent data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey and the California Health Interview Survey. Study is a wake-up call. It says that it's time to make diabetes prevention a top state priority. Okay, what causes diabetes? You're not going to find it in this article. Prediabetes is a condition in which blood glucose levels are higher than normal, but not high enough for a diabetes diagnosis. Up to 30% of those identified with prediabetes will develop type 2 within 5 years. It doesn't say what that number is of your glucose level. Doesn't tell you any facts other than that. But anyway, it was an 8-month-long survey, and it cost $50,000, but they don't tell you how to prevent diabetes. Anybody know? Anybody? 512-646-1984. What causes diabetes? And I've heard this from a medical doctor, a regular MD, not an osteopath, not a chiropractor. Regular MD, they know what causes diabetes. It's not in this article. It's fat. Fat in the human diet causes diabetes. Now, it doesn't mean you're fat. You can be thin and have diabetes. It's the intake of animal fat that causes diabetes. So what would be a prevention for diabetes? Let me think about this. You may have to get out the calculator, the slide rule. You may have to call up the computer that just beat the guy in the game of Go, which I have no idea how you play that. Beat him 4-1. The guy actually won one game against this computer. Maybe we need to get that computer, Google's computer. What causes diabetes? We got Terry from Texas. Maybe he knows. Hey, Terry, how you doing this evening?
You're sounding pretty lonely on that program.
You know, I'm trying to get some other people to come on. Brother Jefferson said he'd be on, but he's working, so it'll be a week or two. And I'm trying to get some other people to come on. I might get Robin to get on if she can. She's called in before, but anyway, yeah, I'm lonely right now.
Well, since I've been listening, I've been sitting in my car and got a late start on the day, so I'm eating right now. So I'm sitting in my vehicle listening to you, and I've heard your program many times before. I have many comments, a couple quick questions right off the top. Which do you prefer, Abacus or slide rule?
If you know how to use an Abacus, I don't know it, but I've heard people say that it's better, it's faster. I don't know how you do square roots on an Abacus, but you can even buy a slide rule these days.
I think I'm old enough to remember, of course, the memory gets fuzzy, but I want to say in grade school they taught us how to use Abacus, and I've certainly forgotten since that time frame. And you see people use Abacus, and man, they are fast.
Well, they are. But I used to have a circular slide rule. That was my pride and joy.
What happened to it?
It was in a box somewhere, and we've moved a dozen times since then, so I doubt if I still have it. But I don't even think I had a metal one. Was given a metal slide rule by an uncle who worked at General Dynamics, so it was nice. It was slide really nice. It wasn't the plastic stuff. But anyway, I don't know where it is either. It had a case, and it had a belt loop, so you could put this on your belt like a sword. It was really cool.
Really go to town. I have many comments, but of course, I have probably some very, esoteric beliefs. Certainly they're scriptural, I think, but, I think we're very much like in the time of Jeremiah. It doesn't matter what you say, you're not going to get listened to. So,
yeah.
As far as, I will start, because I'll start with the less controversial one. Maybe I'll start with the less controversial and work more towards the most controversial ones. I came up, those comments are in relationship to three issues. You talked about the elections, money, and the eating of the mouth in the Garden of Eden, which I have my beliefs on. I am of the belief in conjecture that in Exodus, and of course this ties into the present, that, all of this will flow through as far as what's coming down, will all come about economically. And why this money system is so insidious, because it violates two things: the loaning of money of interest, and like it says in Proverbs about that differing weights and differing measures are abomination to God, because it's charging interest is a form of slavery. Once you start that system, it's a form of slavery. You can never get out of it. Yeah,
I was going to say you can't get out of it. It's a money pit.
I find it very interesting. It's my conjecture that in Exodus, follow with me on this, which is so interesting. What was the thing that preceded in Exodus before God set in his two hitmen and his two hitmen, Moses and Aaron? What was the thing that Pharaoh did that precipitated him sending them in?
He made them work on the Sabbath.
Nope.
Well, he did. What is it though? What's the other thing?
Pick the straw out of the brick.
Yeah, they did that.
And that's when he sent them in. And it's my conjecture. Here's a thing that's right interesting, at least the epiphany that I had with it. Certainly nothing we learn, is on our own. Like you said, we're both dumb. I'm pretty dumb too. It's the Holy Spirit giving you epiphany or illumination in on it. It's, it's like the glory of kings to hide a matter and for a wise man to search it out. I don't have my scriptures in front of me, unfortunately. What color is straw?
It's a golden yellow color, brownish.
It's gold in color. And the brick, the straw was actually a metaphor, representation of the gold, and the brick was actually a representation of their labor. So they actually, like in today, once you take gold out of the system, your labor becomes harder and harder and harder to be able to, and it creates incredible leverage on their side. Like in the financial system, it gives them incredible leverage. So when you take straw with gold out of a system, it reduces your labor. We're actually working harder and harder. And the interesting thing on that whole story is before they left and went into Egypt, and then, they closed the door and headed into the wilderness, what's the very last thing that God had the Israelites do to the Egyptians before he left?
Well, he had them give their wealth money.
He had them plunder them of all their gold and silver.
Yeah.
So my take is that was really the thing. You fast forward to, the New Testament, when he was sitting there having that in John 8, that conversation with the Pharisees. And of course, he says, "You're of your father, the devil." He was a murderer and liar from the beginning. And he shines a spotlight on those people. He really gives them to task about, what's taking place. And it's interesting, when he had that whole conversation with them in the temple, which room was that in the temple he had that conversation with?
That I don't know.
In the treasury.
Huh. How about that?
In speaking of the elections, you cannot even talk about the elections. I guess I should hold my thought. Should I hold my tongue?
Yeah, we're coming up on a break. We'll get it after the break, okay?
I'll bite my tongue between now and then.
Okay. All right, thanks. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number is 512-646-1984. Love to hear from you, and we'll pick up Terry after the break.
But it's as big as a promise of a coming day.
It's summer in 2017 and it's hot, but when you go to turn on your AC, you find you no longer can. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll tell you about the coming smart grid in just a moment.
Your search engine is watching you, recording all your searches and creating a massive database of your personal information. That's creepy, but it doesn't have to be that way. Startpage.com is the world's most private search engine. Startpage doesn't store your IP address, make a record of your searches, or use tracking cookies, and they're third-party certified. If you don't like Big Brother spying on you, start over with Startpage. Great search results and total privacy. Startpage.com, the world's most private search engine.
You've probably heard of smart cars, but have you heard of the smart grid? Stimulus money is being used to fund smart electric meters across the country. Chances are there's already one on the side of your house. Smart meters allow for two-way communication between your home's electric system and the power company. But monitoring your energy consumption today could turn into rationing tomorrow. Already, power companies are running trials where they remotely turn off people's air conditioners during peak hours. Eventually, the smart grid will monitor every time you use the toaster or run the dryer. It'll know when you're home or when you use the guest room. It's all micromanagement, and it's the future, unless we say no. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at catherinealbrecht.com.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
All our times have come here, but now they're gone. The seasons don't fear the reaper, the wind, the sun, or the rain. We can be like they are. Come on, baby, don't fear the reaper. Baby, take my hand, don't fear the reaper. Be able to fly, don't fear the reaper. Baby, I'm your man.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk. And I just want to mention, before we go back to Terry, we do have this fundraiser going on, a chip-in button on LogosRadioNetwork.com. If you enjoy the radio station and other programs, this program, other programs, donate some if you can. LogosRadioNetwork.com. All right, Terry, what were you saying before the break?
I don't know. You know, my 2 cents, it's all going to fall on deaf ears anyway. So, you know, the election, I think I was agreeing. I was sort of half listening a little bit with what you were saying, if I recall it, when you were talking about the elections. I think maybe I'm in agreement with you on that one. If what I listened to is true, that it matters not the candidate issues. This is kabuki theater for the masses. It doesn't. The agenda will continue on, whether it's Trump or Hillary. This thing has been rigged from day one.
Yeah, but it does show you the temperature of the people, that they're upset, they're fed up with stuff.
Yeah, and there's no way. And why do I sense this or believe this? Because you can't even address the elections unless you address one thing, which all other candidates are beholden to: that poor little defenseless country in the Middle East, the Israeli-Jewish question. They're all for Israel. They're all for the Jewish people. And so Trump is for him. He's got daughter and son-in-law married to him. If he's in New York City, he can't turn a screw in that city unless he's dealt with them. Hillary Clinton is beholden to them. And they basically run, own, and control this country, lock, stock, and barrel. They're going to give a speech next week, both of them, at AIPAC. $80 million a year budget, tax-free, this entity, 200 people working for them. And, you know, they're all getting up there, they're all diehard for Israel. Israel can do no wrong. And you can't talk about these elections, because look, if anybody raises a finger against them, they're out.
Yeah, it sure seems that way. I agree with you there. They do talk about all supporting Israel, that's for sure.
And, you know, and of course, that's my belief, conjecture too. These are not the people that pretend who they are, that all the Christians are following after. You know, the only two churches in Revelation that God was smiled upon was the Church of Smyrna and the Church of Philadelphia. And the Church of Philadelphia, he gave the key of David. What is the key of David? He also gave the hidden manna. What is the hidden manna? Those are two questions you should ask yourself, and see if you can find the answer to. And they were the ones who were identifying the Jews that say they're not, in the synagogue of Satan. Who do I know that says they're Jews and they're not? I wonder who that might be. And he was it's very interesting. And I won't go any more into that controversy. You mentioned something about eating from the tree of fruit. I believe you had a caller who's called it many times before. His name is Walt. I don't listen to the program all the time. He tried to highlight to you about the two, I believe the day I was listening, he was trying to highlight to you about the two creations and also, what transpired in the Garden of Eden. I believe he was talking about that with you one time. And
he did.
I've been studying this for many, many years, and I am certainly, everybody has to do their own. I think everyone has to do, and everybody has to come to their own conclusions. But the story in the Garden of Eden does not add up. The punishment has got to fit the crime. If I stole your calculator, your slide rule, Don, you're probably going to hit me in the back of the head with a pineapple. Or, I might get a nice slap on the wrist, might spend a day in jail. But if I come in with a submachine gun and start butchering all your family members, I'm hanging from the gallows. So the punishment's got to fit the crime. Eve ate with her mouth. That's the story that we've been told. Punishment's got to fit the crime. She ate with her mouth. And what are they covering when they got caught in the garden? They're covering their private parts. So she ate with her mouth and they're covering their private parts. That really makes sense. And then he curses the beast and curses her. What does he curse her of? Childbirth. What does eating with the mouth have to do with childbirth? Nothing. And then he talks about, the curse, I will put in between your seed and her seed. That seed happens to refer to offspring and also male sperm, if you look it up in the Hebrew. And then she says, the serpent beguiled me. There's 5 definitions for that word. That's nakash in Hebrew. One of the different definitions means to sexually seduce. So, of course, I'm of the belief that he had sexual relations, and I believe that even Adam participated in, because we've got homosexuality. That was the one, God came and Lot and destroyed Lot. Somehow there was a connection there, too. Again, Cain is not named in the genealogy. They can never talk about that. How is he not named in genealogy? There you can look up all the stuff. There's a thing called superfecundation, heteropaternal superfecundation. A woman can pass 2 eggs at the same time. And a man can have relationships with a wife, and then another man can have relationships with the wife. There was an article in the New York Times last week about a Vietnamese couple that happened to. There was one in 2014 about another couple. There's a couple in Dallas, where you're from, in 2010. She gave birth to a black kid and a white kid. They lived in an apartment complex. She was married to a black guy. 5 days later, she had sex with a white guy in the apartment complex, gave birth to a white kid, and gave birth to a black kid. So then when he's having that conversation in John 8, he says that you are of your father the devil. He was a murderer and liar from the beginning. You do your deeds of the father of the devil. The only person that did the deeds of the father of the devil was Cain. When he lied, when he killed and he lied about it.
Yeah.
And then when he says, when the Lord has given me a man child, and then says, again gave birth to Abel. Well, that again also in the Hebrew means to continue. So she had been fertilized by 2 different men and continued on to have one, which was the offspring of Cain. And then when he says, when they have Seth, another one was given in the likeness of Adam. It doesn't say Cain was in the likeness. Yeah, he was made in the likeness of Adam, because Cain was of the offspring of a union between Eve and Satan. And to say he was a snake that crawled on, all 4s doesn't make sense, because he talked to her. And tree, there must be tree, the definition in Hebrew, of course, there's like 4 different definitions of tree, which is etz in Hebrew. One of those definitions is something that has a spine. And the only thing that has a spine is an animal or human being. There must be, I've lost track of the number of verses that refer to man as being a tree. When God healed the blind man, when Christ healed the blind man, all I know is I see men walking around like trees. When Daniel gave in Ezekiel 31, he talks about Satan being like a tree. And he was the tree in the garden. And when, you'll be like a tree firmly planted by springs of water. I'm trying to think of all the ones that come off the top of my head. When Nebuchadnezzar interpreted the dream or Daniel interpreted the dream for Nebuchadnezzar. He said that he would be that great tree, that's you, Nebuchadnezzar. And then he'd be a stump and he'd live like, a cattle or whatever it was for 7 years.
Yeah, but he had a dream about a tree that was banded, had a band around it cut off. So what do you just have a different interpretation of the Bible, you're saying, than what is normally presented?
I think that really, and then you go into Matthew 13, he talks about the parable of the wheat and tares. All these Christian people want to say the tares are Christians and don't believe. It says this was that seed that was sown was sowed of the evil one. It's not people spiritually don't believe in God. It's actual, literal. He said that he will, before he even addresses all this, he says, I will show you things hidden since the foundation of the world. And that, I don't have the word in front of me. It's a mystery. It's hidden. It's not a mystery that Christians don't believe. They're backslidden or not believing Christians. It would be a mystery that Satan had such relationships with Eve. That would be a mystery, yes. I mean, none of this stuff adds up. He had to have had, and then God didn't honor the offering of Cain, but he honored the offering of Abel. They gave the offering both at the same time, so they must have been twins.
Well, it was the time for the offering anyway. I don't know. That's really interesting. I'll have to look up about the tree thing, reference to men as trees, separate from Nebuchadnezzar, because he had a dream of a tree being cut off and have a band around it, and that he was that tree. But anyway, I'll look that up. That's just interesting stuff.
There are many references to men being used as being trees in the Bible. And then look, the fig tree, remember? Then it goes back to the fig tree in the parable of the fig tree. And then Jeremiah talks about figs.
Yeah, the fig tree and the vine has been his people, his chosen people that were unchosen. We're coming up on a break again, so hold on if you'd like. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 15th, 2016. Last segment of the show, 512-646-1984.
Easy.
Seems like yesterday, it was long ago. Jenny was so lovely, she was queen of my nights. There in the darkness with the radio playing low, and the secrets that we shared.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talks, last segment of the show. So call in with your comments or questions if you've been holding on, 512-646-1984. And we'll go back to Terry. We've been talking about what you've been saying, Terry. So that's just what you're saying. That your take that the
why does Cain have it?
Angels, the fallen angels, have mated with humans.
Oh, they had. They had what the Nephilim, and the Anakim and the Emimim and all these people. So the question is, of course, amongst many things, and of course that leaps forward to the New Testament. But I won't go there. Then that becomes really controversial. I don't think people have ears to hear. But why does Cain have his own separate genealogy? They can never answer that. Why does he have his own separate genealogy? When you look at the genealogy, they trace Christ's genealogy in the New Testament, in Luke and Matthew. Never go back. It never goes back. If now, Cain would now be the firstborn, but it doesn't go that way. It says Seth. It goes right to Seth. Why did Cain get skipped over? So naturally, by default, he should be in essence, in lieu of that, should be the firstborn.
Well, and it's sort of like the firstborn with Isaac was, whose name I can't think. Oh gosh, I can't even think of his name.
Cain is not the firstborn, and this is.
Yeah, no, but I went through Isaac, even though he was the secondborn. I can't think of his brother's name. Well, anyway, go ahead.
Because
Ishmael, Ishmael was the firstborn. They were twins. Ishmael was born first, but it went through Isaac because Ishmael really gave it up. Well, anyway, go ahead.
But what is interesting too is here again. You're going back to the ate with the mouth. We can talk about the fig tree. I wonder if I can get to that point if I got time. But anyway, now you got me on another tangent. I was going to start talking about the fig trees, and then he talks about why does he find two times in the New Testament why the fig tree had no fruit on it. So. And then Nathaniel, let's go back to, you were saying, oh God, what was the first thing you said that triggered another thought for me? Lost my train of thought. There's so many trains of thought going on. Cain is not in the genealogy now. I forgot what it was. Why would, if they ate with the mouth, why are they covering their genitalia? And the genitalia, if they ate with their mouth, it doesn't add up. And he cursed her. He cursed her in childbirth. Why is he cursing her in childbirth? I thought she ate with her mouth. Doesn't make sense. And then you were talking about Isaac, right? Getting the birthright, right? Of course, Esau was trying to steal it, but you said, in Romans it says, Paul said that Isaac I love and Esau I hated. But of course, that's another train of thought, but that's going to take too long to discuss. But this is what's interesting. I find is that it says in Hebrews, without the shedding of blood, it can almost be said without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. So he cursed Eve in childbirth. In other words, it means that she was going to be shedding blood because she was going to be having a period. When Isaac, and so since the seed line came through Abraham and Isaac, not through Ishmael, this is what's so interesting. Did Abraham have did he have the circumcision before Ishmael was born or after Ishmael was born?
Abraham?
Yes, Abraham.
That's a good question. I'd have to look it up.
He had circumcision after Ishmael was born. So therefore, again, going back to the sexual reference, of course, it's a spiritual reference too. So he had to have shed blood in his vital areas. The shedding of blood, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. Eve shed blood through her, so to sanctify that womb, so that the Israelites could come through Isaac, Jacob, and through that descendant, through that line, not through Israel. Of course, Ishmael is, I think it would be without question, the descendants of Ishmael are the modern-day Arabs.
That's what they say anyway. It may be. Back to what you're saying, the shedding of blood is really talking about Jesus. It's not really talking about the woman's menstrual period or having blood when you have childbirth. Eve was going to give birth a lot because she was going to be the progenitor. So she had lots of sons and daughters, and she was going to give birth about the same way. I guess the original plan was that it wouldn't be harmful to her. It wouldn't be painful. But the shedding of blood is really about Jesus, who shed his blood to cover our sins. And that was the shedding of blood. And that if you read the Genesis, the very first thing they did after they sinned was to kill a lamb. That's a type of Jesus. It was a foreshadow of Jesus.
It fulfilled two objectives by doing that too, just like the circumcision is I would say, is multifaceted. Circumcision of the heart, also the circumcision of what took place in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard a lot of your what you've been saying before. I have to do some research, but a lot of it I don't really agree with because it's taking things out of context, or it's painting a picture or weaving a story that the Bible just didn't really hold up. There's a lot of other things going on, but it's interesting. I'm glad you're telling me about this. So it causes me to do some more research.
What is being taken out of context?
Well, I don't, just a lot of stuff. Like I said, about the blood being shed is really referring to Jesus. The whole Bible's about Jesus. So I don't think. I mean, she had lots of children. I don't see anything in there hard and fast that you could say that Cain was Satan's spawn, was of Satan's DNA.
And it's funny, you just got done saying earlier about people that don't want to look up and see this stuff when it's so obvious. You were just saying that earlier.
Yeah,
I was, and it says in Proverbs 16, he who answers before listening to a matter is a shame and folly to him. We need to do the research and study on this. I have been a Christian for many, many years and didn't see this. I hadn't seen which I believe is, like Walt was saying, the two creations. I had not seen that before either. And I'm not off on all these tangents. I mean, I've been studying this a lot. I'm not saying I'm an expert by it, and it's for each person. Now it adds up. It adds up why God is talking about in Revelations about the synagogue of Satan. In Peter, 1 Peter 3, it says, not of Cain, who was of the evil one. Peter talks about Cain being of the evil one.
You bring up a lot of stuff. It's hard to answer all at once. I have studied the Bible, and I just mentioned I'm going to study it more because of what you said. I have heard of the two creations before, and I know that that's not correct because if you know the Hebrew way of telling stories of learning, they'll tell something and then they'll repeat it with the same information, and they'll add new information. They repeat and enlarge, and that's what that story of Revelation looks like. There's two creations, but it's just the way they teach in Hebrew. Repeat and enlarge. They repeated the creation and then added new information. And the book of Revelation is that way, and book of Daniel is that way, big time. These timelines. But anyway, that's just about that. So, I'm going to study some more. It's just good stuff that you've given me to study. It's going to bring me to the Bible to do some more study.
It's interesting in that there are two creations that they switch the definition of who God is in the first one, and then the second one that gives a different definition of God. One's Elo and one's Elohim. I can't remember this right at this moment. And I think and I sense that what took place in the Garden of Eden when he says the Lord has given me a man-child, when and this is where we're at today too. This is why Christians are so deceived. Can you imagine an entity, Satan, down that's so powerful that he thought he was God and he deceived a third of the angels. And what really is taking place in the garden, too, is a metaphor for what's going to take place, I think, in this near future now, is that a lot of Christians, too, are going to be deceived and follow after Satan. Because when she said, I've gotten a child with the help of the Lord, a man-child, I actually heard somebody say, this is not my own thought, that this person who was studying this, been studying the first 5 chapters of Genesis for 5 years, that she thought, of course, she was a female Christian student of the Bible, that she thinks that Eve, which I thought was interesting, that she got confused because when he was in the garden, he was trying to deceive, just like like in these end times, he's going to be coming up and being the imposter, the Antichrist, trying to deceive people into saying, I'm Christ, I'm the real Christ, not Christ the real Christ. And that's what took place in the garden. He actually was representing himself as Christ in the garden, and she got confused. Even she was confused. And I sense that might be true. I don't have 100% because he's so powerful that he deceived a third of the angels. This being, you look in Isaiah and Ezekiel and you see how incredible he is, perfect in his creation. You can imagine I can't imagine an entity that powerful. And he will deceive. And in my sense and conjecture is there's many Christians right now are deceived, and they will follow after the Antichrist because they don't see what the key of David is. They don't see the hidden manna, and they don't know who the elect are.
Well, I'll agree with you that 100%, because the Bible, the first thing out of Jesus' mouth when they ask about what he was meaning about the Jerusalem being destroyed, temple, not one stone left upon another. At the end times, he said, first thing out of his mouth in Matthew and Luke is, be not deceived. So, yeah, deception is going to be big time. And it is now. I mean, like you say, talk to people and they don't listen. I've seen it over and over again.
And certainly if you want to get it in the physical sense, it's my sense too. Yeah, there's no question in my mind, at least I believe. I'm not the guru. I'm not the final word. I would certainly agree with you on that. There's no way that this election is legit. It's got to be a huge deception. There's no way Trump is legit. There's no way that Hillary is legit.
Yeah, the way I look at it, there's way too much money involved for let the people decide who's going to lead the country.
Exactly. They can elect a ham sandwich.
Yeah, well, that's our show. Thanks for calling in, Terry. It's nice talking with you.
Later.
All right, have a good evening. God bless you. That's our show, and I don't agree with everything Terry said, but that's okay. Well, I'll just read the Bible, and maybe I'll talk about it on the next show or show after. Well, that's our show for this March the 15th. Thanks for listening. Hope everybody has a good, safe week, and get your Bibles out and study it, and see what you have to say about what Terry brought up and what maybe comments I made. But anyway, that's the whole thing. Get your Bibles and read. We're in the time of trouble such as never was. It's only going to get worse. And but it's all in the Bible. We know what's coming up. I've read the end of the book. I know the story. Let's talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening.